Crafting. You both know me, but I'm Scotty, and I'm the owner and founder of Slow Living Solutions. Um, we are a life crafting solutions firm, and let me just stop and talk a little bit about slow living and what life crafting is and how they are related to one another as a starting point. Slow living is a philosophy that has been around for quite some time that isn't necessarily about operating slower in the very literal sense, but it is about making very intentional use of our time and engaging with the world in very intentional ways as a means of better connecting with ourselves, our environments, and the people that are in our communities. And then life crafting in relation to slow living is the actual practice of doing the intentional work. So instead of, as our lives get very hectic and chaotic, going through the motions and doing all the things and trying to meet all the needs of all of the people that come in and out of our lives and all the obligations that we sign ourselves up for, really thinking about what serves me best, what are my values, and then how do I best orient how I structure my time very intentionally to meet my personal needs for what I derive the most value out of. So, no questions. Okay. With that said, so how I got into this, just a little bit of background for all of you. I had my own sort of, I wouldn't call it an epiphany per se, but in the course of my career, I had been very motivated in the corporate sector to climb the ladder and as a very knowledge oriented person, wanted all of the degrees and wanted all of the certifications and was very hell bent on proving who I was and what I knew and the value that I brought to the table. And I struggled very much to fit like a square peg into a round hole into that type of into the corporate environment. Um, and so in 2022, when my father passed, I really had to take a look and reevaluate as I was going through my own grief process from that experience about what was particularly important to me. Um, and throughout that grief process, I had to sort of dissect where was I, why was I doing the things that I was doing? And if it was to really win his approval, which I think was a huge part of it, I now didn't have that person to please anymore. And so my motivation to win over his approval sort of wasn't a reason anymore to be doing the things that I was doing. I also had been there for the 6 months that he was sick and in really experiencing what his experience was of coming to the end of his life, I needed to reevaluate what the end of mine was going to look like someday too. Um, and so I found myself in this place where I was thinking, what's I want to get to the end and not worry about whether or not I am fulfilled or whether or not I've made a difference or still questioning my own worth and value. And so it became very necessary for me to take a look at like what were my core values and the things that mattered to me the most and start putting those forward and taking steps in a direction where I could live much healthier, much happier, and much more intentionally with the time that I have because we never know when our last day will be. So, that being said, that was the impetus for starting this company and really seeing a need on a much larger scale than my own of other people who are having this struggle in their, say, 30s through midlife of trying to figure out what is it that's really important and how to restructure to make sure that that is what's front and center for them. So the actual definition, if you will, of life crafting I have right here. It is, I'll read it to you, a process in which people actively reflect on their present and future life, set goals for important areas of life, social, career, and leisure time, and if required, make concrete plans and undertake actions to change these areas in a way that is more congruent with their values and wishes. So just to give you sort of a bit of an intro there, more formally, that is what we are intending to do with life crafting. So how do you know if you need this? Oftentimes we find ourselves at a fork in the road where we are either unfulfilled by the work that we're doing. We feel like there's some bigger calling that we haven't been chasing, or there's the opportunity for a calling that we've never been chasing. There isn't work life balance in our lives. Perhaps we already have that calling, but it's taking over in some way, shape, or form. We're all very much conditioned to people please, and we have to kind of find our place in our space with that. And it can overwork us and burn us out when we aren't able to put our own needs first. Conforming to societal norms, there are a lot of boxes that we are um, incentivized or societally motivated to check, whether that's buying a house or getting married or having children or any of the like. Um, Having reached those societal norms and then still not finding the happiness that we thought was going to be at the end of that rainbow. Or we're struggling to build meaning. And that can happen in any one of these facets of needing to figure out, like, where's the why behind all of this, and what keeps me going, or keeps me engaged in the things that I am doing. And so that can manifest in a number of different ways. We can feel stressed or overwhelmed. We can be burnt out. We can feel like we're living in chaos and disorder, that we're too busy. We can feel very anxious around uncertainty in our future. We can feel like we don't know who we are ourselves anymore because we've divested into everyone else, and haven't really taken the time to get to know ourselves. And a lot of times that leads to disconnection and loneliness. And as is very generically speaking, the self care terminology these days is usually alluding to things like, well, just go take a bubble bath or treat yourself to something pretty or have a glass of wine or just relax or stop worrying, which is like, not helpful. And so being able to have some strategies to put into place to address the sensory feelings both in the body and in the mind of what it is that we are experiencing from this disconnect of our lived values and the way that we are living today, is what we're looking to accomplish within life crafting. So when we start off on the life crafting process, one of the things that I like to do with clients is to talk about what are our stress management strategies. So it's easy for us to fall into traps of avoidance, of trying to disconnect or disengage, of doing compulsive or destructive behaviors. I'll be the first to say that I am a nail biter. It's a terrible, terrible habit I've had for many, many years. But other people choose to watch TV or to compulsively eat, or we use coping mechanisms that have been anything from drinking to drugs to pharmaceuticals and the like. And even social scrolling, we're now seeing is becoming an even more popular way to just flip the brain off from having to engage in things when it gets too overloaded and we don't want to continue that participation. So, working with clients, I like to say, what is the routine that you have structured for yourself? And when you're having these feelings, whether it's overwhelm or anxiety or some other form of stress that you are experiencing, what are the things that you could potentially go through that we could align into your routines so that it becomes a practice of trying something new to alleviate that stress from the body and from the mind. So there are things that we can do, such as taking a walk, breathing exercises, creative expression. A really easy one when we get super overwhelmed, and this is what happens to a lot of us, is we get so worked up and so worked up, suddenly you're crying or you're bawling or having some very large emotional outburst. That is the body's needing to release all of that tension, cortisol, adrenaline that's been building up inside of the system. So sitting down and having a good cry even makes us feel a whole lot better just by being able to release those stressors from the body. If we have gotten to a place, and this is always the goal, where we have the ability and the space to manage our stress enough to start asking ourselves some bigger questions about what we really want to be doing future forward so that we aren't being inhibited by that stress anymore. The crafting motivations model is where I like to start. So I have clients that typically sit in two buckets. Sometimes there is crossover or overlap, but we're typically seeing people that are, I'm having something is missing from my life. I need something additional that brings me joy or that is just mine or something that's personal to them because they have given away so much of their time and attention to others and don't have something to claim for themselves anymore. The other group has too much on their plate and needs to offload things that are not serving them. So they might feel very attached to whether it's their community work or it's their job or it's the relationships they've built with their family, but somehow there are way too many other commitments in the way of them being able to be present in the moment for the things that do matter. And so we're either needing to add something or usually subtract something as the two buckets that people sit in. And the lenses that we use to identify where that's happening for people are these identity lenses. So I've identified four of them that we usually go through. You've got your personal experience, your professional experience, your familial experience, and your communal experience. These are like your four facets of identity. So the same way that you could be, for example, maybe you're a mom, but maybe you're a social worker, but maybe you're a wife, but maybe you're a sister, and maybe you're an activist, and maybe we play multiple roles within our one self, and so evaluating what we need or what we have too much of needs to be done with the idea of which lens are we wearing at any given point in time, and then we can start to focus on if there's one area that is significantly over or under indexing, how do we put our life crafting practices to good use in that particular space as a starting point? So, our approach, I'll just read this to you. We help you identify a vision for yourself of the life that you want, pinpoint your challenges in making your vision a reality, and help you create and execute a roadmap to better personal well being. So, in the first phase of the Life Crafting Foundations course, what we focus on is identifying those core values that every person has. We aim for 3 to 5, no more, no less. And so I work either individually or in a group setting to help people to create language around what it is that's really personal to their experience. And sometimes that's identifying who are the people that you really look to for inspiration, the people in your family, the people in your friends community, the people that inspire you in the greater ecosphere of the world. Next, we want to identify like what are your interests. So, you know, I think interests are tend to be a much easier bucket for us to start to pick off of like what are our extracurricular activities, what are the things that we are willing to go out there and try that we have a bit of confidence with, things that maybe we've been exposed to before. The much more difficult bucket for people tends to be strengths because we are taught not to talk about things that we are good at, especially as women. But I think in general, both men and women are not always encouraged to really self identify with the things that we uniquely bring to the table. And so we work to figure out what those things are. And at the heart of that sits the vision for the future. which is made up of passion, power, and purpose. So we work through and identify what those three P's are to then say, here's what you're looking at for what your we're putting language to what your future is going to uh, ideally look like for you as you have defined it. Next, we look at, since we've now done our vision, we look at current state. Where are we in comparison to that vision? There's usually some kind of gap analysis that needs to be done that says, here's what's up right now. Either it's that too many things need to come off the plate, or it's I need to add something in as a supplement to what I've already got going on to make it to whatever this vision happens to be. Sometimes that manifests in skills, sometimes that manifests in behavior, sometimes that manifests in new and exciting activities or a professional transition, but we have to kind of look at what that might be. And so the first bucket is to say, why does this change need to happen? We need some sense of urgency for why it is that we really want to get to this vision and we're not going to continue to put this off. So why are we here today? Like this has to be important enough to do something about. And then we're looking at what is it that really does need to change. So getting very specific and very clear on where we want our focus to be to get to that vision. We cannot do all of the things all at once. Let's pick something that we consider to be a manageable goal. And then how does it need to change? So again, that's identifying, am I adding something? Am I subtracting something? Is it a skill? Is it a behavior? Is it routine? Is it something else? And being able to say, like, this is what I would expect needs to happen as a transition to get to that future vision. So that's phase two. Then we take that thing that was the what needs to change and we build that into being a goal that we can structure our time together in your consulting program around. So we say, this is the goal that's going to be part of that bigger vision that we're focused on right now. And critical success factors make up what does that goal actually look like in action oriented activities. So if we have a goal or an objective, it tends to be a little bit more nebulous. If we were to break that down, these three things have to be happening to validate that this goal has been achieved. So we pick out what those would be and then what the necessary conditions are. So what steps have to be taken in order for those critical success factors to manifest or come to life. So it's a way of taking one idea and breaking it down into much more manageable bite-sized pieces, with the plan being that we can roadmap and start to track on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis our progress towards reaching and achieving that goal that would have otherwise felt cumbersome, too big, unachievable, idealistic. So the slow living process, we kind of talked about four phases. There was understanding your challenges, identifying those core values, clarifying your vision and transformation, and then taking that action towards the life that you want. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do have some client testimonials here. I've worked with some really great people so far who have had pretty big visions for themselves. So just a quick overview that Nikki was one of my first clients. She is an esthetician by trade and has been studying and building her business as an herbalist. And so we've been working together on how to bite off her transition from being an esthetician, full-time mom, etc., and what she can do to build up her scope of products, as well as think about how does she then introduce those in incremental ways towards having a business or a whether that's an online or a brick and mortar of her own that she can eventually work towards. Kenise Marshall is another client of mine. She's a current client. She's done the full foundations program. We started off really identifying that what she needed was something more for herself. And that the thing that she really loved and needed was a way in which to build community that served her family but also other families, allowing them to not just spend time with other families, but also spend time as a family unit. So there's plenty of places that you can go that your kids can run around and do arcade games, or while parents are at the bar drinking or whatever, or you go to the kids' playhouse thing and then the parents have to sit on the sidelines and kind of like watch the activities. But there isn't a lot of communal spaces where parents and children get to do something fun and exciting that fits the interests of both of them at the same time. And a game space is really what she's looking to achieve with that, because games can range for any age group, and they also range in the type of interaction that you want to have. So some people like board games, some people like card games, some people like table games, some people like arcade games or video games. So she wants to be able to offer that plethora, and help to sort of build a way for people to spend time, not only with their kids but also with other families. And then Melissa here, she has been an ASEA leader. She worked her way up that particular company's pyramid chain, and was very, very successful as an individual, and then decided that she really wanted to scale and be teaching other people how to do what it is that she does. So she's been looking to bring on and grow her team to 12 leaders that can then spread more of the good news, if you will, about the ASEA product. And so we worked together to really talk about what it would entail for her to take on a leadership type of position, what that training would need to look like, and how to consolidate it. And then how she would roll that out from one person to scaling to 12 over the course of the next 1 to 2 years. So many exciting experiences happening. And then finally, next steps. So I'll just finish this real quick, and then I'll take Q&A. So the best way to get in touch is to set up a discovery session. It's a free 45-minute call. I'm usually pretty lax about the time. So if we need to go longer than 45 minutes, I'm okay to typically do that. I do want to make sure that anybody who's coming to me really gets to talk through what it is that their need potentially would be, and make sure that they have a clear understanding of how we can meet it. So I try to be very lenient with my time that way. The other option is to take a look at the courses that are now being offered. This is the next one that is coming up. It's called Navigating the Emotional Storm. This particular course is really set to help people who are stuck in that stress phase. That's sort of the preliminary to doing the life crafting foundations work. So we have to make sure that the self-regulation is there in order to make personal, emotional, mental space to be able to do the foundations work. So this is an opportunity to start to really dive into putting language to the emotions that we're having, and figure out how to get out of those spirals that we find ourselves in when we are in times of stress, and perhaps even for some people in places of despair. So this workshop will be next month. It is the 14th in person and the 15th virtually. You can sign up on my website. If you scroll down on the homepage, there is a section for events that will allow you to click on the button that says buy tickets. Within the next week, I will be also posting for a small group that is going to do the first phase of the foundations course. Both classes will be offered in a very small, intimate format, so I don't take more than 8 people at a time. My theory is that I want everybody to feel comfortable, like they can sit around a dining room table and have a conversation, and everybody gets to be heard, everybody gets to be seen. There's time for everybody to contribute, and it's not we can build a sense of trust and safety amongst a smaller group like that. So I think that's all that I